Hey, LaCheryl, how you doing? Okay, I've got your work up. I want to go ahead and take a look at your writing here. One of the things you mentioned in your writing is you're still getting used to the eraser tool and the quick selection tool to make selections much easier. I'm a little concerned about the comment of using the eraser tool because eraser typically removes pixels. You should be using strict masking to to remove an object from its background. You should not be erasing pixels at all. And that points to what? That points to non-destructive editing. And then we introduced non-destructive editing. We talked about non-destructive editing in week 2. So we need to really apply non-destructive editing. So in your masking techniques, it's based on a selection and a straight layer mask without erasing or destroying pixels. And the relevance here is that if you keep the original background intact without erasing pixels, and your client comes to you and says, hey, this is great, but I want to include this, you have everything there just to adjust the mask and to preserve the pixels associated with the image, so you don't have to remask or do anything. You just have to refine your mask. Okay, really, really important concept. And again, that points to non-destructive editing in Photoshop as it relates to our week 2 lectures and learning resources. So really want you to review that area right there and rethink using the eraser tool to in conjunction with your masking techniques. Okay, layering images, yes, absolutely. Layers are one of the foundational cornerstones in all of Photoshop, so that's great. Blending images together should look belong together as whatever they come creators going for. When you say I'm able to blend images, are you talking about blending modes? Because we didn't introduce blending modes until week 3. So I would recommend that you go into week 3, take a look at the blending modes and the type technique tutorials and some of the specific special effects available in Photoshop, and consider applying those to your poster as well. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at the poster. Got it up right here. Let's go ahead and bring this down so it fits in the window. I think it's a good start. I say start because I definitely feel like this is an incomplete poster. I think it feels like a work in progress. So in that regard, it definitely needs some more work. But a couple of things I would recommend are the following. There's really a severe lack of contrast in the poster itself. It's very, very dark. And yes, the genre does dictate using dark techniques, as we saw in the examples right here. Right, they've all got very dark backgrounds, but if you notice, each one has a very high degree of contrast associated with it. We're not quite seeing that contrast here. I would recommend really doing something with this image to make it pop. As right now it seems to recede a little bit in the composition. I'd love to see this pop, as it is the focal point, and also consider enhancing the syringe as well. I think it's a really nice little a composition that does communicate the idea quite effectively. As I said, though, I think we need to really increase the contrast. Let's get this to pop off the page. I like the glow effect radiating from behind the brain. I think that kind of gives the brain its own sort of life. And that's a really interesting technique. The 3 mason jars, I would go ahead and instead of just using silhouettes, why don't you go ahead and, if you can find something, I mean, if you can find an image with a brain in a jar, I think that would really point to the kind of experimental ramifications associated with, injecting evil into the brain. So think about that. Just the silhouettes aren't quite communicating that message. So think about that. Think about including something in those ball jars that will allude and kind of reinforce the fact that this is a big experiment, right? Evil brain, I would not use this typeface. I would use something that is really much, much more able to grab the viewer's attention from a distance. Something almost aggressive. Let me show you an example. Look at the Halloween typeface. Okay, that is really able to be seen across the room. Now, this is a poster, so it must be able to be recognizable from a distance. And one of the things that we can do in that regard is to change your typeface to something that is recognizable at a difference at a distance. And also, I would like to increase uh, the contrast associated with the title as well. Take a look at this again. This example right here. It's the bright white for the title and the sub and the tagline. I would recommend doing the same thing. Maybe even in a sans serif typeface, bright white, and then the same typeface over here. Okay, the size relationships are great, but I just am not feeling that typeface. I think it's really difficult to read at a distance, and it just doesn't draw the kind of attention that we need to create a good typographic hierarchy. Okay, so now you talk about red. I would present it in white or something much more crisp than red. A great technique you can do is present it in white, as we see here, then take the whole thing, duplicate it, place it behind the original, offset it a little bit, maybe down and to the right or however you feel, and then color that red to get to that blood effect that you're talking about, or that kind of correlation to blood. Okay, even evil can be created. Actually, that's a little bit small, so we want to create a nice relationship between the headline and the subhead. So I would recommend increasing that, and definitely consider a different typeface, something more along the lines of really super easy to read. Okay, and my final recommendation is this: is what's going to really pull this together is the credits on the bottom of the page. So if you jump over to the actual assignment page right here, this shows you how you can actually assemble your type using that kind of movie credit, this kind of style right here. And then you can place those movie credits right down here at the bottom of your poster, and I think it's really going to come together in that regard. Okay, so as I said, really good start, but again, contrast, typefaces, hierarchy, and definitely want to get some sort of a relationship between these jars and what the main plot is. Image credits, I would present those in white. And other than that, I think you're off to a fantastic start. So good concept, good presentation, good execution so far. Let's stay away from the eraser tool, and let's go ahead and work this to completion. If you have any questions at all, please let me know. I'll be glad to make any necessary clarifications. And really good start. Thanks so much for sharing.